Hello, good morning. Lisa Johnson here, coming to you from my little office to do what would Lisa do, which is what I do every single Monday morning, just to give you a bit of a pep talk for the week. What I wanted to talk to you about today, my little 10-minute lesson for you, is boundaries, because I think we all got good with boundaries. During COVID, we had to, and afterwards. I don't just mean personal boundaries, but business boundaries as well. And I think we all got pretty strong with boundaries. And then because, cost of living crisis, because we're going into harder economic times, often what we do, the first thing to go is our own boundaries, because we feel like we have to overgive. We have to over-deliver everything. We have to give way more because people are spending money during, what is a low economic time. But actually, the boundaries are even more important during times like this than ever. And they're going to be really important in 2023. Otherwise, you're going to burn out. So we need to talk about boundaries and make sure you have them in place. Now, what do I mean by boundaries? Let's take some examples. So one boundary that always goes very quickly when people are looking at getting more clients is how much time they're giving to clients before anyone pays them. So, giving free stuff. Now, I'll hold my hands up. I like giving free stuff. I do stuff like this for free. I do challenges for free. Lots of people charge for challenges now. I never have. And, if someone needs me, who is already a client, a little bit more than they would, I am that person that will go, let's just jump on a call and get it sorted. I've always done that. But it can slip really heavily before people buy from you, because you want people to buy from you. So let's say you're doing a launch and someone says, can I just have a chat to see if it's for me? And then an hour later, you realise you've just been on a call with them for an hour and they've picked your brain and you've told them a load of information, and they still haven't booked yet. And then they say, I just want to ask a few more questions, just like half an hour more. And that's when you should realise your boundaries have to come into place, because people will sometimes take advantage of a good nature. And if you're an over-deliverer, that's what's going to happen. So what we want is for you not to be over-giving on boundaries. Have a boundary in place. So for instance, when I do any kind of discovery call, I don't do many discovery calls or sales calls, but if someone wants to work with me at a higher level and they want to chat with me, or I want to chat with them to make sure they are in the right container, then what I will do is put aside 20 to 30 minutes, and I will not go beyond that time. And I will be really careful not just to tell them everything that I think they should do. I'll give them a couple of tips on where I see it going, but it's not enough time to coach somebody or to consult with somebody in a half an hour period. And so it cuts that off, but it still gives people a feel of whether you're the right person to help them, and they can ask you questions. So be careful, because you will get a lot of that. The other thing that you need to have boundaries on is people texting you, whether that's on Messenger or on Instagram, and just asking for stuff. So I don't really get lots of people asking for advice now, because I think they know that there's plenty of places that they can pay to be in to get that advice. But I did get, every now and again, someone will write me a novel or send me a 25-minute voicemail asking for advice about what they should do about something in their business, who I don't know and I've never heard of and they've never been a client. I just ignore them. I don't reply back anymore, because I used to spend half a day just answering people's voicemails, and some of you do this, and you don't have to. You're not a bad person for sticking to your own boundaries of where you're going to spend your time. Now, I choose to spend most of my time with the clients that are paying me, and a bit of my time with those that aren't. So it's not fair if you start over-delivering to people who aren't paying you on those people that are. It's the same with things like if you have a membership. So I have a membership, and so every now and again someone will write me an email or send me a messenger message saying, I'm in your membership, I don't want to post this in the group, so I'm going to ask this here. And it's massive. And it's like, can you look at my sales page? Can you do this? Can you do this? I say no straight away, because it wouldn't be fair on the people in my mastermind in DI that are paying for the privilege to have my eyes on their business. So you have to be really, really careful about not overgiving. The choice is I used to be a huge giver, especially heart-centered businesses. Yeah, that's why. Now it's a 15-minute chat with a 15-minute lag. And I think we just have to be careful on these kind of boundaries. And also boundaries around, people will ask you to do free stuff. People ask me to do free stuff. Can you talk in this? Can you talk in this? And I'm kind of all for it if it works for both parties. So let's say that someone is an affiliate of mine and they want me to talk in their group. It makes sense for me to go and talk in their group because it's introducing me to their people. Let's say if someone has a good audience of people I'd like to get in front of and they ask me to come and do a training or to come and speak at an event, but they don't want to pay me, they haven't got the budget for it, I might waive my fee if I'm standing in front of a perfect audience. What I've now had to be careful of is not saying yes to every single person that asks me to do something, whether it's a podcast or, doing a quick training in their group, because I found that my diary was completely filled up with doing things that I wasn't being paid for. And, people now pay me £5,000 to speak on a stage, so it doesn't really make sense for me to then do a load of things for free. So your boundaries can be, I'm really sorry, I don't have the time to do any free things right now. I'm still a massive giver and my boundaries are way loose. Mine used to be much worse than they are. I think I've got good at them more recently. But it is something you have to be careful of, because you can very easily look in your diary and go, wow, my whole week's full, and realise that none of it's for clients, none of it's for things that are going to benefit you. And it's all, maybe you're going in front of an audience and only 2 people are going to show up. Is that the best use of your hour? So it's about putting some rules around when you will and won't do things. I've learned from your mistakes, yeah. But I think that is the way to do it. Learn from my mistakes. That's why I'm telling you, because I have done things wrong in the past. I have been way too available to be able to just help anyone for free. And what I found is that people that I had helped the most for free. So for instance, I had a client that was a client for about a year, was in a mastermind with me. And she was great. I used to help her all the time. I used to go way over and above what I should have done in that container, but I really wanted her to succeed, and she needed me. So I was helping and helping and helping. And then she wasn't a client for a couple of years. And then she asked me for something and I said no. And she said awful things about me all over the internet, how I wasn't helpful because she's not a client anymore. And that's the problem. If you over deliver way too much, then you're training people to treat you like crap when you don't. I'm in an online business coaching course right now. I have 10 years coaching experience. She recommended me to sell single sessions for €99. I'm thinking about a group program, 6 months, business coaching as well. I have a price, your price is the correct one. Don't be doing things for €99 when you've got that much experience. And experience does come into it. And there are definitely ways that you can get in front of audiences rather than doing yes, at the beginning, you're going to get in front of audiences and you're going to talk. If you have you've just started, you haven't got loads of experience, you probably are going to waive your fee for a little bit, but not forever. Once you've started getting clients, you can't keep doing that. I do it for high level clients who are in DI only. Otherwise I charge now because it's my time. And sometimes I only realise this because of what other people are doing. So I asked somebody yesterday, hey, I'd love to have you speak to my masterminders about XXX that she's a specialist in. And straight away it was yeah, I can do an hour for you. I charge 10,000 for that hour. And I was like, whoa. And then instead of me going, well, that's ridiculous, 10,000 for an hour, I was like, that's her pricing. And actually, maybe I'm ridiculous for constantly doing things like that for free. And it's about just knowing when you're slipping back into boundaries. It's easy to do it when there's an economic issue on, because what we want to do, we're here to help people at the end of the day. Probably all of us didn't get into this for the money. We got into this because we wanted to help people. The problem with that is then when we know people can't afford things, or we're worried that people can't afford things, we do too much. We go over and above. I'll give you 2 more one-to-ones. I'll do this. Stick with what your packages are. The other way that I've seen boundaries get looser during this kind of time is people sticking to your policies. A good example of this is my membership. So I have a membership. and people need to take 48 hours to tell us that they want to cancel. We do this 48-hour policy because it gives us time, it gives my team time to cancel them, because we might have a few things to do at the same time in the support inbox. So we always say 48 hours, if you want to cancel, that's how you cancel. All you need to do is tell us and we'll just cancel you. We don't ever ask for like reasons or anything like that. It's up to you if you want to be in the membership, and then we cancel. And I've had so many people who forgot to cancel this month and are like, give me a refund. But proper entitled, not, I'm really sorry, I forgot to cancel, the money's just gone out, please could I have a refund, I wasn't going to continue, because things are hard this month. But we don't get that. We get a lot of, give me a refund, because I didn't want to stay in and you didn't remind me a few times that it was coming out, or, you know, all of those kind of things. Like, we have to stick to our policies. And what can be really, really hard to stick to is when people write to you with their story. Now, this was my hardest thing, because I've been a single parent, I've been in poverty, I understand how these things feel. So when people used to come to me and say, you know, not just for like refunds for membership, but they would buy a £2,000 course, and then, you know, 3 weeks later or 4 weeks later, when they've done part of the course, say, I want a refund, I can't afford this actually, you know, you're taking the money for my kids' food type stuff. I'd feel awful and I'd give them a full refund. And then about a year into my business, I did that for 2 people in 1 month, and then saw them paying 5 times what I was charging to a different coach. They wanted the course, wanted to get a bit of it and then go and do it to somebody else. And then I found out there were professional, I don't even know what you'd call them, revolters, who would go from person to person to person, do their courses and then demand a refund, sometimes through Stripe, and then do somebody else's course and do the same thing. And you know, we talk as consultants, and we were talking to each other and going, oh yeah, she's done that to me. And it was the same people all the time. And so now what I decided to do a couple of years ago is have a policy. And that policy would be for all. And it wouldn't matter what the story is or what someone told me. We have a policy, you know, you can get a refund within this amount of time. After this, if you've accessed the training, there is no refund. Or, you know, whatever the rules are, 48-hour policy, if the money is taken after that, then I'm afraid we have to stick to our policy, because it wasn't fair that the person that could come up with the best sob story got a refund and the person that was just being straight with me didn't. And we were like, how is this in integrity? Integrity is always sticking to the same rule. And so that's what we started to do. And it can be really hard during this time to stick to those boundaries, because, you know, people will say such awful things. Like, I've had emails this week saying such awful things like, you've taken £49 that I couldn't afford. That £49 I can see is just going towards you buying a house. Like, why should I pay for your lifestyle? All sorts of awful things. And, you know, like, the reality is I have 10 employees. It's not going towards me going on a yacht. My investments might be that I made 2 years ago, might be funding that. But what definitely isn't is the money coming into the business, because I have to pay employees. You know, the business is its own entity. I'm just the CEO of it. I get a salary like everybody else. But it is funny how people think that. The other thing I would say, just as a tip, that if you do accidentally mean to do something, like you didn't mean to sign up for something, or you meant to cancel something before the end of it, I wholeheartedly hope that you write to whoever it is, whether it's your Sky, whether it's the gym membership, or whether it's an online membership, and say, I hold my hands up, I should have done this, I'm really sorry, is there any way I can have a refund? Because the second you start getting mean about someone and, you know, being awful to them, they're not going to give you the refund, because they don't have to, because in their terms and conditions, they've stuck to what they should do. And one of the things that people always do with me is pull out the integrity card. Well, if you had integrity, you'd give me that refund. That doesn't wash with me anymore, because I have really good boundaries. I know about integrity, and integrity is paying the thing that you signed up for anyway, so it doesn't really ever work. But people will also do things to you like say, well, I will write online about you and tell everybody how awful you are. Let them. Like, don't let people dictate your boundaries. And this is the same personally. So personal wise, often we will say yes to things that we don't want to do because we don't want to feel bad about saying no to something. You know, oh, I don't want to let that person down. Like, I really don't want to go out to the pub with that person, but, you know, I've got so much work to do and I really don't want to do it, but I'll feel bad if I say no because I said no 2 times. You don't have to come up with excuses for things. I want you to always remember one thing, one line. No is a complete sentence. As soon as I realised that, things changed. And people really do respect boundaries. Like when I say no, I'm not going to do that at the moment, but thank you for asking. No one has a go. No one is like, oh, what a horrible person. They understand that you've got other things on. But having your boundaries and knowing that no is a complete sentence means you don't have to constantly come up with justifications of why you don't want to do something. You can just say no, and that's okay. That's what boundaries are. But so many of us don't do that. Are manners the same as integrity? Yeah, like you should have manners, and you can have manners and say no to something and still have manners. So, you know, you're not doing anything bad by saying no. I'm really sorry, this isn't the right time for me to be doing that. Or I'm sorry my diary is full. Or I'm sorry I can't give you half an hour of my time for free. But if you'd like to book in for half an hour, here is the link to pay. Or no, you can't pick my brains. I'm really sorry I don't have time for you to take me for a coffee so that you can pick my brains. But if you want to work with me, here's a way to do it. That you've still got manners doing that. And I think that people think you're rude if you're doing that. But you need to see the difference between boundaries and rudeness. Because otherwise what's going to happen is you will burn out. And you won't make the money in your business because what you'll be doing is doing everything for free just because somebody wants you to. It's okay to do things for free if you're getting something out of it. You know, there are people that I speak in people's memberships. That's okay. It's okay to speak in someone's membership if I know that there's an audience in there that I can give my freebie to at the end of it. Like, that's in lieu of me getting payment. I will get paid further down the line by some of those people. But if you're like, well, I'm not getting anything out of this, then you have to think to yourself, you might be doing it as a favour to somebody because they did something nice for you. For instance, I'm speaking in Puerto Rico at something next year. I'm not being paid for it, but I'm doing it because that person that's asked me to has done lots of things for me that they didn't have to do. So then it's like a quid pro quo thing. But there are quite a lot of people that demand things from me that have never, you know, shared my stuff or like asked people to buy one of my books. And I got very clear at the beginning of last year that I was going to make sure that if I was doing things for free for people and helping them make money, they needed to be seen to be helping me, because it should be a two-way street, and a lot of the time it isn't. Like, I really notice when I ask things like, you know, can people share my book, or can you share my podcast, or, you know, when I just ask for things that don't cost money, that just takes people's time and effort, I massively notice who does it now. Because then if that person comes to me and says, I need this from you, I'm more likely to say yes than if someone that doesn't. You can help people and make a ton of money at the same time. It is not mutually exclusive to do those things. What I would say is have some free things that you can send people to. So I have a load of freebies on my website that they can have for free. So if people say, well, I can't afford you, but I want to learn from you, there is a way to do it. You just go over there. And I have things at different price points. So if somebody can't afford my £20,000 mastermind, that's okay because I have a £49 a month membership. So, you know, that way you are covering your bases. But saying you shouldn't charge for something is ridiculous. You know, we all have to pay our bills. We've got businesses. We all have to make money. Yes, you can help people, whether you're spiritual or not, and still make money. And those people that tell you you should do it for free, that's not your issue. That's their issue, because they want something for free and they don't like that you have a boundary. And in fact, the people that will be mean to you about saying no to things are people that have benefited from you having no boundaries before, usually. are they really the people you want to help? But I think we have a huge issue at the moment with entitlement, which is, I don't care what's in your contract or T&Cs, this is what I want. It doesn't work like that in the real world, and we're in the real world online. It's not a different kind of world to normal businesses out there. It's the same. So as long as you know what those boundaries are, and it's written down and it's in the contract, then you stick to them. You have to stick to them. It's not fair of you to not stick to it for that person, because that person seems like she has a worse story than this person over here. That's not integrity. Integrity is the same for everybody. Just be careful around your boundaries, what we call boundary gaps. There are lots of boundary gaps that you can have in your business and in your personal life, and you need to plug them, because they cost you time, they cost you money, and they cost you energy. And sometimes, especially on the personal side of things, they cost you your mental health. Because if somebody is, really, for want of a better word, taking the piss of your boundaries, then that's going to cost you your mental health, because you will start resenting that person or what you're doing. And we don't want that. We want you to love what you do all the time. And by having great boundaries in place, and the people that have taught me this are my own coaches. So I have a coach at the moment, and I loved that on her boundaries sheet, she gives you like a thing, it says, you must be on time for the training. If you're 10 minutes late, you're forfeiting that 10 minutes. Like, it's gone. And that's to show her own boundaries. And I really liked that. And I liked that I had another coach that on the dot of the time, it doesn't matter what we were talking about, she would say, your time's up. So we'll pick this up again next time, because we're out of time today. Like, she wouldn't let me ramble on for 10 more minutes. And I really loved that. I loved that they knew their boundaries, and it taught me. And I want to teach you. So those boundaries are always going to be in place. But I want you to have a look this week. Resenting oneself can happen. It can, because you're overgiving when you shouldn't. So, and that's not to say don't over-deliver. Like, one of the things that I love doing is putting already in a program some stuff that people don't know about, so that there's a few bonuses that people don't know. That's, under promising and over delivering, which is brilliant. I love that. It's about keeping your clients happy. Love doing that. We'll always do that. But I know before I go into it that that's what I'm going to do. What happens generally with over delivering that shouldn't happen when you're out of your boundaries is when you had an expectation of what you would do, and then you still do more because you feel bad if you don't, or you feel like you should because they're paying you money. It doesn't work that way. Or even if they're not paying you money because they're a friend, they want free stuff. It doesn't work that way. And I can't tell you how much you should learn from my mistakes on doing this. There were so many times in business where I had somebody that I thought was a friend turn on me when I said no to them, selling to my audience in my Facebook group. I'd say no, and then they would never talk to me again. And then I would realise that I'd been letting this person overrun my boundaries for so long, thinking they were a friend, when actually they weren't. They just wanted my audience. But you won't know those things until you put the boundaries in place. And when you do, the people that are still there are the people who, they're maybe the people you can go over your boundaries with. So just be really careful. But what I'd love you to do this week is just spend some time on each day thinking, where was my boundary and where did I allow someone to overstep it? And it's not their fault, it's your fault if you do, because it's up to you to say no. So, if someone's inviting you out and you say yes when you don't really want to go, that's not their fault. You're going to resent them for it, but it's your fault because no is a complete sentence and you didn't take advantage of that boundary. Same with work. When you're replying to people on Messenger, you're like, oh, I hate replying to people on Messenger. Why don't you just write to them and say, oh, I'm really sorry, I don't reply to people on Messenger, but if you're in one of my Facebook groups, please ask in there and I'll help in there. Have a look at where those boundary gaps are and see where you can plug them. It'll make you feel so much better.